What up? What's up? It's Guru Jojo, and this video is literally about to be about how to stop second guessing yourself. Keep in mind, this is not about how to completely disregard your own sense of common sense and just go straight after willpower at any given time. This is more so about how to kind of prevent negative thoughts from invading your own personal willpower at times when your own personal willpower is supposed to be expressed, rather than some sort of negative thought that could have been built from childhood. In other words, this is about your ability to balance out, right, your own sense of willpower with your own common sense. So basically, in situations where people second guess themselves, there's usually some sort of negative thought pattern that occurs, and this could be just simply from something that was triggered, whether it be a thought that came up because of something someone said, or just something in your environment that kind of is causing you to feel like you shouldn't maybe go after this situation, or you shouldn't really partake in this situation. Now, what's important is that it's important to build sort of like a quick checklist in your mind when it comes to certain scenarios, when it comes to certain situations. That way you won't have to second guess yourself, because it's almost like as long as this is what is happening, and this is good, and this is good, and this is good, and everything is making sense, then there's no need for me to second guess myself. I have the right to express my energy upon this vibration or situation, whatever it be. Now, in a situation where you may be getting an opinion from someone else, so some sort of external or outside force, this is going to cause you to possibly second guess yourself. So the first thing to understand when it does come to acts of willpower is that this is dealing with numerologically speaking, if it's just having to do with yourself and something that you're putting yourself into, and it really shouldn't involve someone else, you should try to, build willpower to make those decisions by yourself without needing someone else's opinion. Now, there's other people who come into this world who need others, okay? Like, it's kind of part of their duty to need others and to get a second opinion. But what I'm saying is that you shouldn't depend solely upon that, because at the end of the day, you come here by yourself, you come here alone, and you leave by yourself, and you leave alone. So when you understand that concept, you need to understand that the decisions that you make, it really doesn't involve other people, because people will try to pretend like they give a shit, and as long as you're supporting their needs and stuff, but really people don't give a shit. They're not going to be there for you, and they're not going to help you unless they're like a really important person that's a part of your life. But I guess that goes into things like conditional love and unconditional love and stuff, and all love is conditioned. It just depends on the level of the conditions. Like, if there's too many conditions, that's where things get extreme. But in general, all love has a condition. That's what attracted you to the vibration in the first place. If there was no conditions, then there wouldn't have been an attraction. So get a little bit off topic, but it's all working hand in hand with the topic in particular. So one of the main reasons why people kind of second guess themselves, because they feel out of control of situations. There's some sort of fear that is supporting, and it's not. It's actually causing a lack of support, but there's some sort of fear that is underneath whatever it is that you're trying to do. So when you start to realize what that fear is, like, ask yourself, okay, why am I second guessing this situation? More than likely, it's going to be because there's something that you feel like you may not be able to control, or something you feel that you may not be able to, like, basically it's like a prediction thing. Like, people actually like things that are going to be about a particular outcome or come to a particular outcome. And once you start to realize any sort of disruption in that possibility, so once the confidence of that energy is being depleted, that's when people all of a sudden start to feel like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Okay, so one of the main things that needs to be practiced, at least, or understood, is getting comfortable with the possibility of things going in a different direction, being comfortable with the possibility that certain people may not be happy. This is how you're balancing your willpower, what you want to assert with your own individual expression, your own individual purpose, your own individual rights, with common sense and compassion. Difficult to do, to be honest, but very much capable of being done. Because a lot of times, certain things that we can do, it can indirectly hurt or harm others. But then you have to kind of figure out where can you draw a line? Where do boundaries need to be set, right? Like, where is it that, okay, certain people might be hurt, but you have to come to realize, you have to have that wisdom to realize that's their problem. That's something they need to heal. So you need to determine what is your right versus what is not your right. What is your right versus the main thing is to not get confused with other people's insecurities, other people's bull crap that they need to deal with versus the things that you're trying to do, because that could be a huge misunderstanding. People can manipulate things, and it's just like there comes a point you'll be like, hold up, boo, wait, that's you need to heal that problem. That ain't got anything to do with me and my purpose. So there needs to be an understanding between that. Again, that's willpower versus common sense. So, but the thing is, this common sense is more difficult to implement today because people could really manipulate things into appearing a certain way. And there comes to a point where you gotta wake up, you slap yourself up a little bit, take a cold shower, do something. And you're like, whoa, hold up. That don't make sense. Like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but that don't make sense. Like, literally, there comes a point where you have to kind of realize that. But in that realization, don't be insensitive, completely insensitive. People have cognitive issues. I don't know what the heck is going on. Like, I feel like I need to cough right now and I'm holding it in. So it may look, my eyes may be tearing up a little bit. Just in case anybody's like, oh shit, she about to cry. Like, nah, I just like held in a cough. So anyways, that's a lot of times what it is. It's like, you got to come to realize that a lot of people just be kind of making things seem like it's something to do with you when it's not. A lot of people have cognitive issues, cognitive distortions, and these cognitive distortions, they can get into the way of your own sense of willpower and your own purpose and the things that you're trying to implement in this lifetime. From their distortions then, being displaced upon you or projected upon you, right? At the same time, your own cognitive distortions can get in the way of your own sense of willpower. Some examples of cognitive distortions, right? And I actually found this. Some examples of cognitive distortions. This is one of the main things that get into the way of your own sense of willpower, thus causing the issue of second guessing yourself and whatnot. Okay, so some examples of cognitive distortions are overgeneralization, and this is basically seeing a constant negative pattern based on one event, right? So it could be like one negative situation, and this overgeneralizing effect is kind of what I've mentioned in the past. I believe they're trying to say is like seeing something as way worse than what it is. So it's almost like you could be watching my video, and the fact that I might have cut a part of the video, maybe because I sneezed or something like that, but now you want to look at me as being a completely unjustifiable character because I cut a scene out of a video clip. Like I'm not being honest all of a sudden. But it's like I sneezed. I should have cut that out of the video possibly. So now I leave certain things in these videos just because, you know, people do have cognitive distortions. I have to do, and that's when I started to realize, why am I doing stuff for people's issues? Like, because I'm a caring person. What can I tell you? So that's overgeneralization. Blaming and denying. So to blame others for one's problems or mistakes, or to blame yourself when it wasn't entirely your fault. So a lot of times, you know, this is causal of your environment. Other people around you could cause you to feel like something is your fault, like you're in the wrong for a situation. These are simple situations like interracial dating and, you know, dating someone of your same sex. At this point, you shouldn't really allow people to make you feel guilty for certain things like that. That's an example of, you know, a type of cognitive distortion is blaming and denying. So, you know, kind of blaming yourself or others for things that are otherwise. So I'm not going to go over all of them because there's a lot of them on this list. So I'm going to look over some ones that is more important as it relates to the topic. So all or nothing thinking. So seeing things as absolutes and no gray areas. Again, this is a control issue. So whenever you want to try to go in a situation with a complete expectation or outcome, you're not seeing the gray areas to be able to improvise, to be able to go with the flow in that situation. So you want full control over the outcome of that situation. That's like a all or nothing thinking. Negative bias is another one. So you notice all the negatives but fail to notice the positives. So yeah, people have a tendency of only seeing the negatives as it relates to specific groups of people, to specific scenarios, but then when it comes to other situations, they only can be optimistic in that situation. That's a type of negative bias. So it's almost like, that's why a lot of times, like, you know, there's people that are completely against racism and stuff, but then when it comes to something else, they're completely prejudiced with that, but then you have a problem with racism. But when it comes to, like, you know, judging something else, I can't even think of an example, but when it comes to judging spiritual people, you are completely prejudiced against spiritual people or particular people in particular spiritual communities with particular preferences. But it's okay for you to be prejudiced towards that type of group of people, but you completely are totally against racism. You're doing the same thing. Everything's a reflection. Your issues with racism, look at how it reflects the way that you judge others in situations other than racism. Okay. Magical thinking. So you think everything will be better when you're this way, that way, or that way. So you think that if you make one little change to your physical appearance, that this is going to completely change the outcome of how people perceive you. To be honest, unfortunately, people are very superficial. But, you know, people like this, they just think that they can manifest things. And that's really not what things are about. That's magical thinking. So this means that the way that you're perceiving things, you're not perceiving things to understand how things came about. You're only perceiving things for how it already is. And it's a delusion. And again, this could cause things like second guessing, because if something don't seem to be something that comes about quickly, you may second guess it, meaning that you may not want to put in the work towards things that have to do with hard work and time. At the same time, maybe that's the way you have to create your little regimen for whether or not to second guess something or not. If you're a person who can't spend the time and the effort to actually create something for yourself or manifest something, bring something into reality, then maybe you should have some sort of like mental internal checklist that says, okay, if this is going to take too long, I don't want to do it, because that can help you second guess yourself. So see, I look at all angles of a scenario. I ain't only gonna, so a lot of these spiritual people got magical thinking and shit. So over personalizing. You make things personal when they aren't. You believe other people's opinions are facts. You think what others do and say is in reaction to you. Huge thing. This is triggers, basically. So this is an issue between intuition and things being personally towards you. Most people don't know who the hell you are. You can't assume that everything that someone says is personally about you. People aren't thinking about you all the time. People are speaking intuitively. But then at the same time, yes, maybe you should take on those messages, but don't think that person is bad for what they said. They are intuitively channeling a message, which means that it's being done without the attachment to emotions and feelings. That's what empaths and like a lot of intellectuals and stuff can do. They have that gift of literally detaching from themselves to channel a message. That's why sometimes they can appear stupid, right? Because it's like you just said something, but then it seems like almost like you contradicted it. That's why, because it's done without taking one's personal life and emotions and feelings into the message. It comes detached from that. So with that being said, those are the main ones that stood out, the main cognitive distortions that stood out as it relates to second guessing yourself. It's mainly just trying to develop a sense of importance as to why you're doing something. For me, I don't do anything that is not going to be beneficial in more than one way. So it's like, and this is not something really thought about, like this is all in my subconscious. So it comes to realizing what your subconscious is kind of checking off as an approval list as to what makes you feel like this is something to go after versus what makes you feel like this is something to maybe not really do right now at this time. So it considers things like timing, things that are going to be beneficial to you, and also things that are going to be for the betterment of something else greater than yourself as well. A lot of things just have to be balanced. Like for me, if I realize that something is not really balanced, I usually just don't partake in it. That's the type of person I am. Like I'll try something out. I'm a test. I give people tests. A lot of people. That's the thing. It's like I do. That's why a lot of things it just seems random. It's because I'm like, let me see how the environment's gonna react to something that I do, and if I don't like the reaction, I don't partake in it anymore. It's just pretty simple. And even if I don't like the reaction, sometimes I may even push it. It just depends. So because I'm the type of person, I don't like for people to control what I do. So, if people are going to try to act a certain type of way just to try to control me in what I do, that may even cause a oppositional effect for me. I don't like for other people to control what I do. Everything should have a point. If there's no point, then my thing is, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? If something lacks a point, if it lacks value, if it lacks reason, if you start to see the reason behind why there's a benefit towards what you're doing. So for example, anything that you're doing, you will continue doing it most likely if you're receiving some sort of benefit out of it. Understanding the meaning and reasoning behind the benefit kind of better helps you to understand whether or not you should continue partaking in it or not. For example, for people on YouTube, right? You want to continue doing videos that people seem to enjoy and prefer, right? But when you start to realize that initially people are showing some sort of love because that's what they want you to do, you're doing like topics of interest that they want you to do, but then you start to realize that that love is not really being continued in some way, then there's a issue of balance and give and take. So then that's where you got to start to see, I'm not even doing something that I really want to do. I was doing that for these particular people and they're not even giving back. Cut it off. Don't second guess yourself. You don't even want to do it. You have to have some sort of respect for yourself versus others. But at the end of the day, others only care. You have to do the math. Others only care about what's being networked. So you have to have a balance in some way. The main thing is to be able to create a sense of confidence, a confidence checklist. What makes you feel like this is the way to go in any given situation? You have to have a sense of limits. Where do you kind of put your boundaries up and say, this ain't gonna work, that ain't gonna work? See, that's where the common sense factor comes in versus the willpower. The confidence is the willpower. The limits is the common sense. And then the third main thing is to question yourself. Are you willing to be able to know the fact that you're not going to be in full control of the circumstance? So the third factor is, are you willing to not be in full control of the circumstance? That's what you have to question to yourself, because in any given situation where you're activating your willpower, you have to understand that basically you have a potential of being embarrassed because you're not in full control of the situation. Willpower kind of comes a little bit without, it's like actually trying to detach itself from the control factor. So this gives potential for embarrassment because willpower is connected to excitation, and excitation can often cause you to maybe like do things that's going to be grand, and thus it allows for people to kind of manipulate the way that's being perceived. Naturally, this could cause things like embarrassment. So you have to be willing to be able to go through that, which people with wisdom and knowledge, well, people with a lot of wisdom and experience, they're able to sort of like work with it to twist the way that it is perceived. So, and then other people, they just literally go through being embarrassed and then they learn from that mistake. And then when they gain the willpower to try again, they're able to like work through the embarrassment. But a lot of times people who have a lot of willpower, they're able to sort of like almost allow things to kind of go over their heads. You have a particular level of how you pay attention to certain things happening around you, because at the end of the day, your willpower is strong. People are always going to try to like hit it. Like, they see that light and they're always going to there's always going to be something trying to distort the light, trying to, change things up on the way that's perceived to try to damage the way, like, you know what I'm saying? There's always people who don't feel like they have that sense of willpower, so they're going to want to try to mess it up for you. And that's their problem. That's again where you have to start to realize that that's them and their problem. So you kind of have to learn to, learn to work with those type of vibrations that may end up disrupting your energy. Naturally, that's what you have to do. And then there's other things where it just may not be worth it. When you notice that you have too many enemies or too many setbacks going on, and you're in a state of vulnerability. Again, this is now getting to the factor of common sense, like being in tune with yourself to know this isn't a good time for me to do this particular situation, right? So there's a reason why you're second guessing yourself. But in general, as long as you learn to be able to balance between your own inner sense of common sense versus your own sense of willpower, the need to express your willpower, you won't ever second guess yourself. In addition to this, as long as you are healthily, if that's a word, as long as you're in a healthy fashion, always expressing your willpower in a balanced way, you won't ever really second guessing yourself because you are already expressing that vibration naturally. to the point that you won't get stuck in a scenario where you're not activating that willpower, and thus you're not stuck in not activating it for so long that when it comes time to activate it again, you're questioning it because you haven't utilized it for such a long time. You understand? So that's pretty much what I want to speak about in this video. I hope it was helpful, and if you like this video, please share it with others who may need this type of pep talk type of thing. Also, check out my newest song, Houdini. You cannot see feelings, I'm flowing with them. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Blessings, light, and love to everyone.